The room was too cold for tears, yet eyes were wet everywhere. Bright lights burned over the silent body on the table. Machines blinked. Senior doctors stood frozen, arms folded, lips tight, sweat hiding under their masks. A brain tumor was pressing like a fist inside Monica's head, and every expert in the famous Lagos hospital had argued until their voices grew tired. No one wanted to touch the first cut. Then a soft voice, steady and sure, cut through the fear. "I will save her. You are all getting it wrong." Heads snapped around. Nurses gasped. One of the orderlies dropped a tray, and the metal clatter ran around the room like thunder. A cleaner stood in the corner near the oxygen rack, slim, dark-skinned, eyes calm. But she wasn't holding a mop. She was pulling on green surgical gloves, as if she had done it 1,000 times. "Who let you in here?" The head surgeon barked. "The door was open," she said. "I heard the plan. It will fail. Stabilize first, then begin." She pointed at the ventilator, then the IV pump, then the monitor with a flashing red line. "You're over-sedating and under-ventilating. Her pressure will crash the moment you drill." There was silence. A heartbeat on the monitor. Another. The scrub nurse looked from the doctors to the cleaner. The anesthetist swallowed. "Who are you?" the head surgeon asked. "My name is Amaka," she said. "Let me help." The lights hummed. Outside, the city of Lagos roared far away. Inside the hospital, no one moved. Before this day, some months ago, Billionaire CEO, Chief Williams Namdi, lived in his Lekki mansion with his wife, Monica, who often wore sharp suits and red lipstick. Young woman named Amaka worked for them as a maid. She woke before dawn. She swept the stairs. She shined the silver. She ironed the kaftans. She cooked porridge. She kept her eyes low, her words small, and her heart clean. Chief Williams greeted her every morning. "Thank you, my dear," he would say, touching his red cap. "God bless your hands." "Thank you, sir," Amaka would answer, and her smile was soft. But Monica was not happy with the way Amaka and her husband greeted. She watched the quiet maid with eyes that counted shadows. Amaka did not laugh loud. She did not whisper with the drivers. She kept her distance. Still, suspicion grew. One afternoon, Monica stood at the balcony. She held her phone tightly against her ear, her words too quick. "I don't like her around here. I don't care if she is polite. I don't trust silent girls," she said. When she hung up, she called for Amaka. "What is your name again?" Monica asked, even though she knew. "Amaka, Ma." "How old are you?" 28, Ma. "Pack your things." Amaka blinked. "Ma?" I said, "Pack your things. Today and leave my house." The driver put a small bag by the gate. Amaka stood there with the bag by her feet. She did not beg. She looked up at the sky, said a prayer in her chest, and walked away from the mansion in Lekki like a leaf leaving a tree. She had no family. Her parents were gone. Her school years had been paid by scholarships, and her future had once been bright. But lies destroyed it all. Far away, abroad, people who hated her success had set a trap. Contraband was found in her bag that she did not put there. Was given patient a wrong dose by a jealous subordinate, and lied Amaka gave her the order. Her license was withdrawn and detained, and when she was released, she was deported back to Nigeria. She had no option left and ended up as a maid, so she cleaned. She swept. She watched the city move without her. And in the city's biggest hospital, she applied to be a cleaner and asked for work. "Cleaning starts at 5 a.m., the supervisor said, not looking up. "Mop rooms, empty bins, no talking in the corridors. That's it." "Yes, sir," Amaka said. At night, when everyone went home, she hid a thin blanket behind boxes in the store and slept there quietly. She endured the smell of antiseptic in her lungs. She counted the hums of machines. She listened to IV pumps tick like gentle clocks. When emergencies rolled in at midnight, she kept to the shadows and watched the doctors fly around each other like birds. She remembered her days as a medical doctor before the unfortunate gang up against her. Her hands itched for instruments she was not allowed to touch, so she used those hands to clean floors until they shone like water. The ambulance arrived on a Thursday that felt like a storm, even though the sky was clear. Nurses ran, doors flung open. A team formed a fast, sharp circle around the stretcher. It was a 35-year-old, female patient. She had lost consciousness, worsening headaches for weeks, and collapsed at home. The patient's name is Monica Namdi. A hush ripple moved through the staff like wind through tall grass. Everyone knew the name. The billionaire's wife. CT scan was conducted. A mass, and her pressure was high. The time to save her was short. Prep for surgery, the head surgeon said. Call the theater, call anesthesia, call neuro. They called everyone. They pushed Monica past Amaka in a cleaner's uniform, a blue apron, who pressed herself into the wall to let the hurry pass. For 1 second, Monica's face turned toward the wall. Even asleep, it looked proud and tired, and very human. The stretcher swished by. The blue apron stayed still. Amaka stood in the corridor long after the crowd turned the corner. The old language in her bones woke up and stood at attention. She felt fear and love both at once. Fear of the room she had lost, love for the oath she had taken long ago. To help, to heal, to do no harm. She closed her eyes and saw an operating theater, bright and cold. She heard a monitor's. She took off the apron. She washed her hands. She stepped into a world she had once owned. Inside the theater, the team fell apart in slow motion. Not because they were foolish, but because they were afraid. The scans were tricky. The pressure was a fist. The plan kept changing every 5 minutes. The anesthetist argued with the neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon argued with the head surgeon. The head surgeon argued with the room. Induction now. She'll crash. Then hyperventilate. That will blow off too much CO2. Then mannitol. Then fluids. Then what? Then... There was a long silence. No one moved. And that was when Amaka's voice came, soft and firm, from the corner by the oxygen rack. I will save her. You are all getting it wrong. They stared at her like she was a story walking. She did not flinch. Who are you? The head surgeon asked again. Someone who knows what to do, she said. Please, look at the numbers. Focus on stabilizing first. Tight control. Step by step. She pointed at the ventilator. Increase the rate by 2. Keep tidal volume low. Hold end tidal CO2 around 32. Not lower. She pointed at the IV pump. Start mannitol. But calculate properly, no guesswork. Check osmolality. She pointed at the anesthetic gas knob. Dial it down. She's too deep. She pointed at the arterial line tracing. You're losing pressure. Phenylephrine. Small pushes. Do not flood her with fluids. You'll swell the brain. The anesthetist reached for the knobs as if pulled by strings. The numbers began to move like sheep, turning in the right direction. The red line turned less angry. The head surgeon glanced at the anesthetist, who shrugged helplessly. She's... right, he whispered. A nurse fixed a cap over Amaka's hair with trembling fingers. Another tied her gown. Someone slipped shoe covers over her feet. The scrub nurse held out a pair of sterile gloves. Amaka pushed her hands in. They fit like memory. Who taught you this? The head surgeon asked, softer now. Amaka's eyes lifted to the light. A long story, she said. For later, he agreed. Because the room had found its heartbeat again. Amaka stepped closer to Monica. For a second, the noise fell away, and there was only a woman on a table, a life at the edge of a cliff, and another woman standing at the edge with her, refusing to let her fall. Listen to me, Amaka said to the room. We will do this in small moves. No rush, no panic. Stabilize. Then we begin. The anesthetist nodded. Vent said. Pressure's holding. Good, Amaka said. She looked at the head surgeon. Are you ready? He swallowed and nodded back. Ready? Amaka turned to the scrub nurse. Scalpel, she said. The nurse placed the instrument into Amaka's gloved hand. The metal was cool. The lights were bright. The room held its breath, and as the blade hovered over the first line of skin, the theater doors swung open with a hard slap. Someone had run in from the corridor, voice breaking like glass. Stop, Chief Williams's. The word died under the lights. Everything froze. The door banged open like a gunshot. Everyone turned. The scalpel in Amaka's hand hovered mid-air. Chief Williams Namdi stood in the doorway, chest rising and falling, as though he had sprinted up the entire hospital. His white kaftan clung to him, his red cap tilted, his eyes wild with a storm of fear. 2 bodyguards struggled to catch up behind him. My wife. His voice cracked. How is she? What are you doing to her? The surgeons froze. Nurses exchanged quick, nervous glances. The man who owned half of Lagos real estate, who could buy hospitals with one signature, was trembling like a child at the sight of his sleeping wife on the table. The head surgeon cleared his throat, trying to sound calm. "Chief, we're preparing." But Chief Williams's eyes had already fallen on Amaka. The gloves, the gown, the scalpel poised over Monica's head. His breath hitched. He stumbled forward. "What is this madness?" his voice thundered. "Why is a cleaner in here? Where are my doctors?" Gasps spread across the room. The truth no one wanted to speak hung in the air. The doctors had been confused, frozen by fear, until the very cleaner he had once employed in his mansion stepped forward. Amaka did not lower her eyes. For the first time in months, she met Chief Williams's gaze straight on. "Sir," she said gently, "your wife is in danger. If we waste another minute, she will die. I know what I'm doing." The chief's jaw tightened. You, the same girl my wife threw out?" "Yes," Amaka whispered. The room was a volcano of silence. The head surgeon shifted uncomfortably, his pride shrinking with every beat of the monitor. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "Chief, she's right. We couldn't agree on the approach. He hesitated, swallowing the bitter truth. "She stabilized her. Without her, Monica would already be gone." Chief Williams blinked. The words didn't fit easily in his ears. He looked back at Monica, pale and still on the table. Then at Amaka, her gloved hands steady, her eyes glowing with something deeper than confidence, conviction. He felt the fight leave his chest like air from a punctured balloon. He lowered himself into the nearest chair, the weight of his world crushing him. His shoulders sagged, his hands covered his face. "God, forgive us," he muttered. Amaka took a breath. Her heart was a drum, but her voice stayed calm. "Scalpel," she repeated. This time, no one questioned her. The nurse placed the instrument in her palm again. The hum of machines grew louder, as if the hospital itself leaned closer to watch. Amaka began. Each step of the operation was a battlefield. The tumor pressed dangerously against delicate vessels. One wrong move could flood the brain with blood. Sweat pooled under the doctor's caps. The anesthetist whispered updates like prayers. "Pressure is steady. Heart rate is stable." "Good," Amaka replied, her voice sharp as steel. "Retractor, hold steady, suction here. No deeper." The doctors, men with decades of pride, followed her every word. Their hands trembled, not from doubt, but from awe. They had dismissed her as nothing. Now she was commanding them like soldiers, and they obeyed. One surgeon leaned closer to the head surgeon, whispering through his mask, "Who is she really?" The head surgeon shook his head. "Not a cleaner. Not anymore." Outside the theater, news had begun to leak like smoke. Nurses whispered in corridors. Journalists gathered at the gates. "The billionaire's wife is on the table. The doctors are failing. A cleaner is inside the operating room." Rumors ran wild. Some laughed, thinking it impossible. Others prayed. But inside, under the blaze of white lights, the truth was unfolding. Hours bled away. Beep, beep, beep. The monitors sang their steady song. Finally, Amaka lifted her hands, her gloves soaked with the battle they had fought. "It's done," she said softly. The words fell like rain after drought. The surgeons exhaled as though they had been drowning. Nurses clapped their trembling hands together. One of the younger doctors sank into a chair, whispering, "We made it." But all eyes turned to Amaka. She peeled off her gloves slowly, the weight of years lifting with each tug. Chief Williams rose from his seat. His eyes glistened. He approached Amaka, his powerful frame seeming small beside her quiet strength. "I told Monica." His voice cracked, and tears spilled down his face. "I told her never to disrespect anyone, to treat every soul with dignity. And yet, the one she cast away is the one who saved her life." He collapsed into the chair again, covering his face with both hands. The sound of his sobbing filled the room, raw and broken. Amaka stepped closer. She knelt beside him, her voice soft but steady. "It's okay, sir. I did what was noble, what was human. She is your wife. She needed help. I couldn't turn away, no matter what she did to me." Chief Williams lifted his face, eyes swollen with tears. "You are different, Amaka. You are good." The doctors, humbled, nodded in agreement. They had seen her skill. They had felt her leadership. and they had been saved by the very woman they once dismissed as invisible. Hours later, when Monica stirred awake, her head wrapped in bandages, the first thing she saw was her husband's face stained with tears. "You're safe," Chief Williams whispered. "You're alive." Her lips trembled. "How?" He hesitated, then pointed to the screen where the surgery had been recorded for documentation. They played it back, and Monica's eyes widened as she saw Amaka, the same girl she had thrown out, guiding the operation with the grace of a master. Her chest heaved. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Amaka?" she whispered. "She saved me?" Chief Williams nodded. "Yes, the one you called worthless. She gave you back your life." Monica covered her face with both hands. Her voice broke through her sobs. "Oh God, what have I done?" Her first request was clear. "Bring her to me." When Amaka entered the recovery room, Monica struggled to sit up, despite the pain. Her tears fell freely. "I threw you out. I treated you like dirt, and you saved me." Her voice was broken glass. "How could you?" Amaka's eyes softened. "Because, Ma, kindness is not about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. You needed it." Monica wept louder, reaching out weakly. "Forgive me." Amaka took her hand. "I already have." The room was still. The moment was holy, but far beyond the hospital walls, whispers were spreading through Lagos. A homeless cleaner had led the operation that saved a billionaire's wife. The city was about to erupt with questions. The news spread like wildfire. By morning, the headline was everywhere. "Cleaner saves billionaire's wife after doctors fail." At newsstands, hawkers shouted it through the streets of Lagos. On social media, videos of Chief Williams weeping in the theater went viral. Some called it a miracle, others called it madness. But in every corner of the city, people wanted to know one thing: who is Amaka? Inside the hospital, the staff moved as though walking on glass. Everyone avoided meeting Amaka's eyes. Some were ashamed for the way they had dismissed her. Others were afraid of what her presence meant for their own reputations. But none could deny the truth. Monica was alive because of her. Monica requested to see Amaka again. The billionaire's wife was pale, her head bound in layers of bandages, but her eyes were sharp with a new kind of humility. When Amaka walked into the room, silence filled the space. Monica struggled to sit upright, ignoring the nurse's protest. She clasped Amaka's hand, her voice trembling. "Please, tell me, who are you really?" Amaka hesitated. For years, she had hidden her story like a scar under long sleeves. But now, with the eyes of Monica, Chief Williams, and a half-circle of doctors fixed on her, she felt the weight of truth pressing down. She took a deep breath. "I was not always a cleaner." The room leaned in. "I was a surgeon, abroad, the best student in my class. I graduated with honors. My hands, they once saved lives every week." Her eyes glistened, but she did not blink them away. "But not everyone was happy for me. I was young, black, female, and successful in a place where some people couldn't accept it. They plotted against me." Chief Williams frowned. "Plotted? How?" Amaka's voice lowered. "One day, contraband was found in my bag at the airport. I never touched such things, but it was enough to stain my name. Then, during a shift, a patient under my team's care was overdosed. I never gave the order, but a subordinate who envied me claimed I had instructed her. The patient was paralyzed. The board didn't wait for the full truth. My license was withdrawn. I was detained, disgraced, and deported." The room gasped. Even the monitor at Monica's bedside seemed to beep louder, as though shocked. "You mean," Monica whispered, "you were a real surgeon all along?" "Yes," Amaka said. Her voice cracked now, though she fought to hold it steady. "But when I came back to Nigeria, I had no family. My parents were gone, and my life was in ashes. I had no one to fight for me, so I took whatever work I could. That is how I ended up in your house, Monica, as your maid, until you threw me out." Monica's lips parted, but no words came. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Amaka continued, "I slept in hospital storage rooms because I had nowhere else to go. And though I mopped floors, I listened to the machines. I remembered the language of medicine. When I saw the doctors confused over your case, I knew I had to act, not because of what you did to me, but because you are human. You needed help. And that is what I swore to do." For a long moment, no one spoke. The doctors shifted uncomfortably, shame crawling over them like ants. The head surgeon finally cleared his throat, his voice breaking. "Amaka, forgive us. We judged you by your uniform, not your knowledge." Tears brimmed in the anesthetist's eyes. "You taught us more in one night than we have learned in years." Chief Williams gripped the arms of his chair. His chest rose and fell like a storm trying to calm. He looked at Amaka, then at Monica, then back at Amaka. "Your story, it is an injustice I cannot ignore," he said firmly. His voice carried the weight of authority that could bend boardrooms and parliaments alike. "You saved my wife. You saved my life. And I will not rest until your name is restored. The world must know who you truly are." Amaka shook her head gently. "Chief, I am grateful. But fighting those who framed me, it is not easy. They were powerful." Chief Williams's eyes hardened. "Then they have never met me. It's Marge, it's not Wade." By the next day, journalists camped outside the hospital gates, flashing cameras at anyone who walked out. Reporters begged for a glimpse of the mysterious cleaner-turned-surgeon. The hospital management scrambled, releasing stiff statements about team effort and support staff. But the truth was already out, whispered from one nurse to another. She led the operation. Meanwhile, Monica, lying weak but recovering, watched the viral videos of Amaka in the theater. Every clip was proof of what she had once been blind to. The maid she had thrown away was a woman of extraordinary worth. She covered her face with both hands and wept. That evening, Chief Williams invited Amaka into his private lounge within the hospital. The room smelled of expensive leather. He poured her a glass of water himself, an act that startled everyone present. "You must tell your story publicly," he said. "If they ruined you abroad, we will reopen the case. I will hire the best lawyers in London. We will appeal. We will show the evidence. Do you still have records?" Amaka nodded faintly. "I kept everything. The reports, the emails, even CCTV clips." Chief Williams smiled, though it was lined with sorrow. "Good. Then we will fight. Not only for your name, but for every person who has been destroyed by lies." Amaka lowered her gaze, tears threatening to fall. "Thank you, sir." "No," he said firmly. "Do not thank me. You gave me back my wife. You gave me back hope." But outside that room, another storm brewed. Some of the hospital's board members were furious. "If word gets out that our doctors failed and a cleaner succeeded, our reputation is finished," one hissed. Another muttered, "She will embarrass us all. We must silence her before the press makes her a hero." Dark whispers coiled like snakes in the corridors. While the city celebrated Amaka as a miracle, enemies were already sharpening their knives. And as the night deepened, Amaka herself sat by the hospital window, staring at the city lights. She had saved a life. She had revealed her truth. But she also knew the battle was only beginning. The conference room in London was all glass and steel. Sunlight spilled across polished tables where lawyers sat in sharp suits, papers stacked like walls around them. Cameras clicked outside the building, the media already circling like hawks. The case had drawn international attention. The exiled Nigerian surgeon who returned as a cleaner and saved a billionaire's wife. Amaka sat quietly between Chief Williams and Monica. Her hands were folded in her lap, her face calm but pale. The weight of the moment pressed down on her chest. This was the first time she had stepped back into London since her deportation. Memories clawed at her, the cold cell, the cruel stares, the board that never listened. But this time, she was not alone. Chief Williams leaned closer, his deep voice steady. "Hold your head high, Amaka. Today, the world will hear the truth." Amaka nodded, though her heart beat like a drum. The hearing began. A panel of medical board officials sat in front, their expressions neutral, pens poised. The opposing side lawyers, representing the hospital that had expelled her, looked sharp and smug. They believed the case would crumble under old lies. But then the evidence began to unfold. Chief Williams's lawyers laid out every piece. Transcripts, medical records, and emails Amaka had kept hidden in a worn envelope all these years. There was CCTV footage showing her subordinate tampering with patient medication. There were voice recordings of colleagues mocking her behind closed doors, vowing to cut her down to size. Each revelation sent murmurs rippling through the room. Finally, one clip was played on the large screen. A nurse, in a panicked call, admitted, "We blamed her. We had no choice. They told us it was her or us. The panelists leaned forward, eyes widening. The lies unraveled thread by thread until there was nothing left but the naked truth. Amaka had been framed. The opposing lawyers faltered. Their smugness melted into panic, and then, as if the universe itself demanded justice, Chief Williams requested the most recent footage, Amaka, leading Monica's surgery in Lagos. The video played, showing her calm voice directing every step, while seasoned surgeons obeyed. The room was silent, the only sound the beep of monitors echoing through the speakers. When the video ended, there were tears in the eyes of even the sternest board members. One of them, an older woman with silver hair, adjusted her glasses and said softly, "Dr. Amaka, the world owes you an apology." The ruling was unanimous. Her medical license was reinstated. Her record was cleared. The panel declared her deportation unjust and condemned those who had plotted against her. Several of her accusers, already under investigation, now faced prison. Amaka covered her mouth with both hands, trembling. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the gavel fell, marking her vindication. Chief Williams rose to his feet, lifting his hands in triumph. Monica wept openly, clutching Amaka's shoulders. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing the moment the cleaner was reborn as a surgeon. Reporters swarmed outside as they stepped into the sunlight. Microphones pushed forward. "Dr. Amaka, how does it feel to be free again?" Amaka, voice breaking but clear, said, "It feels like breathing after drowning. But this victory is not just mine. It is for everyone who has ever been silenced by lies." The crowd erupted in applause. Back in Lagos, however, the storm had only just begun. The hospital board was shaken. Their doctors had been exposed as unprepared, and the city buzzed with Amaka's name. People gathered outside the hospital gates, holding signs that read, "Respect cleaners. Justice for Amaka. Kindness wins." Inside, not everyone celebrated. The chairman of the board slammed his fist against a desk. "She humiliated us. If she comes back here, she will overshadow everything. We cannot let her make us look weak." Another member muttered, "Chief Williams has too much power. If he builds her a hospital, our influence will vanish." They plotted quietly. Meanwhile, Amaka returned home to a hero's welcome. Crowds lined the streets, cheering as her car passed. Children waved small flags. Mothers lifted their babies, whispering, "That is the woman who chose kindness." Chief Williams held a press conference. Monica seated beside him, still recovering but radiant. Amaka sat in the middle, her modest smile shining brighter than the cameras. "My wife lives because of this woman," Chief Williams declared. "She was treated as worthless, yet she carried the wisdom and skill to save lives. From today, she is not just a doctor, she is family, and Lagos will soon see what kindness can build." The journalists pressed for details. Chief Williams only smiled. "Wait and see." That night, Amaka sat alone on the balcony of the mansion in Lekki, the same house she had once been thrown out of. The sea whispered in the distance. Her heart was full, but her mind restless. Monica approached slowly, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She sat beside Amaka, silent for a long moment. "I used to see you as a threat," Monica whispered. "I thought your silence was arrogance. I thought your humility was a game. I was wrong." Amaka turned to her, eyes soft. "You were afraid of losing what you had. It is human. I don't hold it against you." Monica's tears glistened in the moonlight. "And yet, you saved me. You gave me a second chance." Amaka smiled faintly. "Maybe that is what life is about, giving second chances." Monica took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I want to help you build whatever comes next. Let me." Amaka's eyes lifted to the stars. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this. Her story was no longer one of shame, but of purpose. Unknown to them, in a dim office across town, the hospital board drafted a plan. They would not let Amaka rise without resistance. Envy and fear were sharper than scalpels, and as Lagos celebrated her vindication, darker forces plotted in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The day of the grand opening dawned with a golden sun rising over Lagos. Streets were alive with banners, drums, and dancing. People gathered from far and wide, waiting to witness something the city had never seen before. At the center of the celebration stood a gleaming white building with glass walls that shimmered in the morning light. Bold letters across its front read, "Kindness Hospital." Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and polished floors. State-of-the-art machines stood ready in every ward. The staff wore crisp uniforms, their badges gleaming with pride. This was no ordinary hospital. It was a dream born out of pain, betrayal, and mercy. And at the center of it all was Amaka. She walked through the entrance slowly, her simple Ankara gown flowing behind her. The crowd erupted in cheers, chanting her name. Mothers held their children high, pointing at her. "That is the woman who chose kindness," they whispered. Chief Williams and Monica stood at her side. Chief wore his white kaftan and red cap, his eyes wet with joy. Monica, now fully recovered, held Amaka's hand like a sister. When the microphone was passed to Amaka, the entire city seemed to hush. "My story," she began softly, her voice carried by speakers to the thousands outside, "is proof that life is unpredictable. I once stood in London as a celebrated surgeon. Then, through lies, I was stripped of everything and sent home in disgrace. I cleaned floors. I slept in storage rooms. I thought my life was over. But one day, I chose kindness over vengeance. I saved the life of a woman who had thrown me out of her home. And today, because of that choice, I am standing here as the founder of the best private hospital in Lagos." Tears ran freely down her face as she lifted her hand toward the crowd. "This hospital is not about me. It is about every poor man who cannot afford treatment, every mother who cannot pay for surgery, every child who deserves a chance to live. Kindness Hospital will serve the rich and the poor alike. That is the power of kindness." The crowd thundered with applause. Many moved to tears, but not everyone in Lagos celebrated. In a shadowy office across town, the hospital board that once dismissed Amaka seethed with anger. "She has humiliated us," one of them hissed. "Look at the papers. They call her a hero. Soon, no patient will trust us. She must be stopped." Another leaned forward, his voice low. "We've tried silence. We've tried slander. Nothing has worked. Perhaps it is time for something darker." They plotted in whispers, unaware that their every move would eventually crumble under the weight of truth. Life at Kindness Hospital flourished. Amaka worked tirelessly, not as a figurehead, but as a true leader. She walked the wards daily, encouraging patients, guiding young doctors, and reminding everyone that medicine was not just science, it was compassion. It was during one of the hospital's international medical conferences that Amaka's life took another unexpected turn. The conference hall buzzed with voices from around the world. Specialists shared research, presented papers, and networked. Amaka, dressed in a tailored navy gown with a stethoscope around her neck, moved humbly from table to table. That was when she met Dr. Kingsley. He was tall, with warm eyes behind his glasses, and the calm demeanor of someone who had seen suffering and still believed in hope. A Nigerian neurosurgeon practicing abroad, he had read about Amaka's story in the news. "I never thought I'd meet the woman who changed the meaning of kindness," he said with a smile as they shook hands. Amaka blushed slightly. "I only did what any doctor should do." But Kingsley shook his head gently. "No, many would have turned away. You didn't. That makes you different." Their conversations flowed effortlessly. From medicine to faith, from dreams of healing to simple jokes that made her laugh for the first time in years, Amaka felt something stir in her heart. Dinner invitations turned into long walks after conferences. Friendship blossomed into affection. And one quiet evening, under the Lagos sky, filled with stars, Kingsley knelt with a ring in his hand. "Amaka," he said, his voice steady, "your story has inspired the world, but to me, you are more than a hero. You are my heart. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Yes." Their wedding was an event the city would never forget. The cathedral in Victoria Island glittered with golden chandeliers and roses lining the aisles. Amaka wore a flowing white lace gown, her smile radiant. Kingsley stood tall beside her in an elegant agbada, his eyes fixed only on her. Chief Williams, dressed proudly, walked Amaka down the aisle. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Today, I give away a daughter I never had." Monica followed close, tears streaming down her cheeks, holding Amaka's bouquet as if she were her sister. When the priest declared them husband and wife, the cathedral erupted in joy. Drums beat outside, and fireworks painted the sky. But the journey didn't end there. A year later, Amaka gave birth to a baby boy. In the private ward of Kindness Hospital, surrounded by family and friends, She held him in her arms, her heart overflowing. Kingsley, tears running down his cheeks, kissed her forehead. Chief Williams carried the child proudly, declaring, "He shall be called Williams, after the man who gave his mother a second chance." Monica stood beside him, her arms wrapped around Amaka. For the first time in years, peace filled her heart. As Chief Williams cradled the baby, his voice shook. "I never had a child of my own. But today, holding this boy, I feel like God has made me a grandfather." Amaka smiled through tears. "And you will always be father to me." The room was heavy with love, a love born out of trials, betrayal, forgiveness, and kindness. Meanwhile, justice came knocking on the doors of Amaka's enemies. Investigations revealed the corruption and lies of the board members who had framed her. Several were arrested, stripped of their positions, and paraded before the same media that once praised them. Their downfall was swift and merciless, a reminder that no darkness can hide forever from the light of truth. Years later, Kindness Hospital stood as one of the most respected medical institutions in Africa. It offered free surgeries for the poor, trained young doctors, and became a sanctuary for those society ignored. Amaka was no longer just the cleaner who saved a billionaire's wife. She was a symbol of resilience, mercy, and justice. At the hospital's 3rd anniversary, Amaka stood on stage with Kingsley by her side, baby Williams toddling at her feet. She looked out at the thousands who had gathered, her voice steady and strong. "I thought I had lost it all when lies destroyed my career. But today, I stand before you not as a victim, but as proof that kindness can turn ashes into beauty. Kindness gave me back my life. Kindness built this hospital. Kindness gave me a family. And kindness will continue to heal the world." The crowd roared in applause, some chanting her name, others simply weeping with joy. And in that moment, under the bright Lagos sun, Amaka knew. Her story of shame and exile had ended in redemption. The scars of the past had birthed a legacy that would outlive her. She bent down, lifting her son into her arms, her heart full. "Kindness," she whispered into his tiny ear, "is the greatest power of all." And with that, the story of the homeless cleaner who saved a billionaire's wife came to a glorious close. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.